Welcome to our channel. Bienvenidos. This is Study la Biblia, and as you can probably guess by the name, we are working in English and Spanish, and doing it through the medium of Bible study. Los que vean el nombre de este canal se puede dar cuenta que estamos en dos idiomas. Y vamos a presentar las verdades de la Biblia en los dos idiomas para que tengan la oportunidad no solamente de estudiar y aprender más de Dios, pero a la vez puede mejorar su inglés. And our goal here is to give you the opportunity to practice your Spanish by means of delving into the Bible and learning more about the truths that are there. This study is, well, I focus on Bible women. That's been my specialty for the last 30 years. So it's difficult to find a place to start. But I've chosen to start with the matriarchs, with Sarah in particular. Y los que están fijados, uh, um, estoy dedicada al estudio de las mujeres de la Biblia. Entonces, para empezar los estudios de este canal, vamos a empezar con las matriarcas, más especialmente con Sara, quien era la primera. So, first of all, a little bit about what the matriarchs are. Some of you are familiar with them. The patriarchs are very famous: Abraham, Isaac, and Joseph, or excuse me, Jacob. Getting ahead of myself. Uh, so these are the men who God chose to establish his own people, and of course, the women were known as the matriarchs. So usually I refer to them as mothers of a nation. Que empezamos con las matriarcas, quienes eran las esposas de los patriarcos Abraham, Isaac y Jacob. Y ellos fueron la gente que Dios escogió para, pues, últimamente mandar al Mesías. Era la primera parte de su plan de redención para la humanidad. So a little bit more about the significance of the patriarchs and the matriarchs, the beginnings of God's chosen people. This was actually part of his the beginning of his plan of redemption. As you're probably aware, Adam and Eve sinned in the garden, and that brought sin upon all of humanity. So God's redemption plan began by choosing a people that he could use to send the Messiah eventually to redeem us from that sin that we inherited from Adam. Y es muy importante la gente escogida, porque de ahí va a venir algún día el Mesías, quien era Jesucristo. Y Él es el único que puede redimirnos del pecado con que nacimos todos. And getting back to how this all began, this was in the ancient Middle East after the time of Noah's flood in the Tower of Babel. So it was in that area that the family of Terah lived, who was Abraham's father, and it was Abraham that God first called. And I think this is such an interesting thing to me that God called him and told him to go to a land. He was going to give him this land, but he wasn't going to tell him where it was, what it was. He just had to step out in faith and make this journey. And of course, Sarah with him. Entonces hablamos un poco de la importancia de los patriarcos, porque de ahí Ah, eh, ah, Dios llamó primeramente a Abraham. Estaban en el Medio Oeste. Después del tiempo de Noé y la inundación y la torre de Babel. Fue en esta era que Dios llamó a Abraham y le dijo que le iba a dar mucha tierra, pero él tenía que irse en fe. Dios no le decía ni a dónde iba. Okay, so at the time when God first called Abram, he was initially known as Abram before he became Abraham, and they started off, this very long, several 100-mile journey to a land that they didn't even know where they were going. And in the early days of this story, we don't hear anything about Sarah's reactions. She was known as Sarai, yeah, at that time. But eventually, she becomes very prominent. In fact, she is one of the women that is most written about in the entire Bible. So that's another reason to make her the first woman in this particular series. Um, uh, la primera vez que sabemos de Sarai, después llegó a ser Sara, pero en el principio se llamaba Sarai. Y no sabemos mucho de ella, no sabemos cómo reaccionó cuando iban a irse de un lugar lejos, ni saber dónde, y no dijo nada. Pero ella llegó a tener mucha importancia y hay mucho más escrito acerca de ella en la Biblia que de cualquier otra mujer. Y esta es una de las razones principales que escogí a Sara para empezar este estudio. And the last thing that we learn about Sarah is in the New Testament, and she is found in uh, the book of Hebrews, chapter 11, which is sometimes called the faith chapter. So, spoiler alert, this is one of the few women that is mentioned in this particular chapter, and Sarah is one who is congratulated for her faith. So, as we go through this study, which her study has three separate parts. So, as we go through that, we'll learn, the steps that took her to this kind of notability. Y por fin, lo último que sabemos de Sara está en el Nuevo Testamento, en el libro de Hebreos, capítulo 11. Y muchas personas lo llaman a este capítulo el capítulo de la fe, porque menciona muchas personas que tenían bastante fe. Y hay pocas mujeres que están mencionadas en este capítulo. Entonces, da más importancia porque Sara sí está mencionada por la fe que tenía, igual a Abraham, su esposo. Okay, so looking forward to actually getting started with the lessons themselves, and si Dios quiere, we will be starting those next week. So we'll be looking to seeing each of you here, join us, and going on this journey with these women of faith. Entonces, la próxima semana, si Dios quiere, vamos a tener la primera lección de las mujeres de la Biblia. Empezamos con Sara y tengo un deseo que todos regresen y comparten con nosotras esas historias de las women, de las mujeres de la Biblia. Hasta entonces. Goodbye. Hope to see you next week.